Hi there, it's Marcus here. I'm the course coordinator for HIS140. I've been doing this since 2007, so it's quite a while. And the course has evolved far from where it started because the world is travelling at light speed, if you haven't noticed. And so much is interesting that's going on. It's also quite a critical time, a time of challenge for many. And yet, interesting things are happening always around the planet. I'm personally not pessimistic, though I'm cautious. And a course like this is about how do we balance the information overload we have, which is often grim and dark, with a sense of the possibility, not just of our species, but for the planet. So it's, in my book, a hopeful course. I'm happily joined by Dr. Caitlin Noakes and Dr. Gil Douglas, who have also been doing this course almost since 2007, possibly. Though I have to check exactly in what year they did it. And then, of course, they've moved into their own doctoral work and have led many students over many years on wonderful journeys. So we're all about curiosity and exploration. And I want to introduce you to some key background thinking for the course. It's not necessarily going to be overt or in your face all the time, but I think the points that I want to make for you and with you are important. So I'm going to jump to my share screen and I'm going to take you on a little bit of a guided tour. So what we've got here is a lovely ceramic piece. Dates back about 2,400 years BCE, before the Christian era, the Common Era, and it's from Mesopotamia. And it's just wonderful. And of course, history, exploration of the past, is all about this kind of amazing, wonderful stuff that we have all around us. And the collective intelligence around this material is also growing exponentially as historians team up with archaeologists and a whole range of natural sciences and human sciences too, in order to unpack what made us tick as a species and as, I guess, human beings at the local level of societies and so on. So again, staying with Mesopotamia, we've got this lovely votive little statuette which came from a kingly grave site in Uruk, and it dates back about 4,000 plus years as well. So human beings have been making and thinking and doing remarkable things for a long time. But we can't just measure it in the kind of wonderful things that Mesopotamia or Egypt or China or the Maya and others have given us. We've got to remember that even the smallest groups of human beings were doing amazing things. They just didn't leave records for us to look at. So I'm going to take a breath and turn to, well, what are we doing? So history, of course, my opening thoughts, history is one of those subjects that helps us understand ourselves and our worlds. It's something that people have done through oral traditions. So the new movie Odyssey is coming out soon. And that's an oral tradition that got turned into an epic poem of 24 books, and it's been with us in the West. I underline that, in the West, because there's a much more of a world out there than just the Western society and Western civilization for the last 2.8 thousand years or something like that. So, what does history do? Well, it offers us case studies of humanity. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Chinese, the ancient Egyptians, but also the ancient indigenous Australians who've left huge records on the landscape that we're only now starting to make sense of. There's the ancient Paleolithic and Neolithic peoples across the Eurasian and African continents who moved about 12 to 13,000 years ago into the Americas and so on. These are people who are doing extraordinary things. So they spread across the planet from the species level, so that's humans out there walking, and sometimes on boats and rafts, and also the locals. So The history of the Sunshine Coast is an example of the local. So it is as much about the present as it is about the past. History and the storytelling that any human group do is about the present. It's about offering the present something from, let's say, the memory, the cultural database of a people, but it is also deeply involved in informing our thinking about the future. And we often forget that history offers us models. We tend to try and replicate what we're comfortable with. For instance, here are 3 books that are worth having a look at. Roman Krishnarik has written this lovely book, History for Tomorrow, and it's about inspiration. And similarly, Rutger Bregman, and we use a chapter from his book, and I think it's week 5 or so, Homo Puppy. We delve into his book because it's also looking at, well, what does humanity do? How do we do it? And I guess, what are the motivations for doing? So these 2 books are hopeful histories, but there's Conway's book, The Material World. Okay, he takes very simple, basic elements like copper or salt and so on, and illustrates how they have shaped the world we live in, the material world. Sand, for instance, provides us with silica and silicon chips. It provides us with glass and all sorts of things. It's a fascinating book, but it's a book that says, okay, one of the things that humans have always done is we've chased resources, okay? And resources equal energy in the terminology of this course, and I'm going to come to that very shortly. But before I do, I want to look at something else. The course invites us to think about how we got here. What was it? So we were chasing silica to make glass, or, obsidian to make the most extraordinary stone tools in the Paleolithic period. I've got this lovely little link here. By the way, all these images that I use are generally linked to something. I'm going to put up this episode from the New Scientist magazine, that's right, The Human Species That Outlived Us All. It's actually saying, hang on a second, how do we measure success in our world? Okay, are human beings, this is our species, Homo sapiens, are we as exceptional and extraordinary as we like to think? Well, this particular episode from that YouTube channel offers us another story, looking at brain size, looking at innovation, but also looking at longevity. Homo erectus was on the planet for nearly 2 million years. So far, our species, Homo sapien, have been around for about 300,000 years, and it's only in the last 5 to 10,000 years that we've done anything particularly extraordinary in terms of, let's say, complex social life. Okay, so what, if anything, then makes the human species special? If you have a listen to that program, you'll start to develop perhaps a different perspective on us as a species. And I'm always inviting people to go and look at interesting stuff. Okay, interesting stuff keeps us on our toes. It keeps us curious, excited, engaged, thoughtful, and so on. But it also provides the material for thinking about, I guess, more complex situations like what the hell is happening with this thing called the Anthropocene or climate change and so on. Why is it that the world is getting so polarized at the moment between the left and the right, or between the red and the blue, between the conservative and the open democratic type systems of governance? What's happening in the world of economics when fewer and fewer people are getting richer and richer, but they're getting extraordinarily wealthy and they're exerting power and so on. There's so much happening. How do we untangle this stuff? Well, let's have a look then at big history. So big history is a form of thinking about the human story within the context of the planet, okay? The Earth as a dynamic system, okay? David Christian, who you're going to read next week in week 1, has noticed that there are 3 things that describe what's going on. Firstly, and I've already touched on this, all things consume and generate energy. From stars and through to microbes, through to us as a species. Over billions of years, energy systems have become increasingly complex, moving from single little atoms, mainly hydrogen and then hydrogen and helium, through to life, and then from life to complex social systems that we might call culture. Okay, and the third point that Christian has noticed, and these are deep patterns, that systems shape systems. And once life appeared, evolution became a learning system, that we learn. Genes, genetics holds learning. There's epigenetics, and then of course there's culture. It was slow, but over billions of years this learning has accelerated until, with language, what I'm using right now to talk to you, we have collective learning. That means that you go on, usually now online, but people used to go to books, and before that they used to go to wise people who could tell them stories and so on. And of course we don't just do one or the other. You come to university in the hope to learn from, let's say, trained historians like myself and Gil and also Caitlin, but also you come to university to find perhaps direction for your curiosities, contexts, language and so on that helps you deal with the complexities of your own world. So are you noticing things going on? Have you noticed that climate change seems to be a big topic at the moment? This is a photograph from Germany. Early 2025, late 2024, they had major floods and really devastated the southern states of Germany. 9 people or so died, I believe, but billions of dollars worth of damage. I think this is quite a dramatic photograph. Many say we, as a species, are now entering a period called the polycrisis. See that little bluish word there on the screen? If you tap on that, it will take you to a little bit of a story about the polycrisis from the Stockholm Institute, which is a very, I think, a very comprehensive and academically rigorous or scholarly mob who look at the systems of change, particularly ecological, environmental systems of change. And they say, this is taken from their webpage, our world, this is, I guess a definition in the sense of the polycrisis, our world is shaken by crises, plural, that no longer strike in isolation. They often collide and amplify one another, pushing societies and ecosystems to their limits. This entanglement, and that's a really important word, has led researchers and decision makers to speak of a new phenomenon, the polycrisis. So that's worth thinking about. But we can't just think with the language of science. We have to also think with a broader toolkit, I believe. So that means that I turn to rather unusual sources sometimes to help me think, because I need new words, new language, new concepts to navigate this world. And I'm hoping to share some of those with you over the next 12 weeks of the course. So from the Declaration of the Lacandon Jungle, this is from Mexico, from, I think a really powerful revolutionary group who have been resisting, I guess, modernity and capitalism. They have a very inclusive and plural way of looking at the world. I want to read this to you. I'm going to read it reasonably slowly so that you can kind of absorb it, and the whole declaration can be found in that bluish link as well. So have a listen to this. It's it might challenge you. You might think, what are they talking about? But I would come back to this. This is the sort of thing that I'd print out and stick on the fridge or in the back of the toilet door or somewhere so you can contemplate it. So here we go. Many words walk in the world. Many worlds are made. Many worlds are made for us. There are words and worlds which are lies and injustices. There are words and worlds which are truths and truthful. We make true words. This is these people who wrote this. We have been made from true words because their indigenous roots are deep. In the world we want many worlds to fit. The nation which we construct is one where all communities and languages fit, where all steps may walk, where all may have laughter, where all may live the dawn. Softly and gently we speak the words which find the unity which will embrace us in history and which will discard the abandonment which confronts and destroys one another. They, being of an indigenous background, are aware that in the modern world we are alienated individuals. We see ourselves first as individuals and then as communities. We see ourselves first as individuals and then as families. We see ourselves as families, individuals, families, communities. You might line them up like that and say, maybe we're part of a state like Queensland in Australia, or maybe we're part of a nation like Australia, or maybe we have a geographic footprint, Oceania, Europe, Eurasia, so on. So what they're arguing here is that words create words. Create worlds. Words create worlds. We can only think, if you think about it, with words. But who shapes these words? Who gives them form and force? How do we understand truth? There are words and worlds which are truths, they say. We make true words. They say this because they are speaking from the heart. But this is not just sort of romantic dreaming. They actually are developing social and economic forms based upon old indigenous principles from Mexico and so on. So there's something really important here. And what they are interested in is this plural world, this world where we construct all communities and languages fit, where all steps may walk, where all may have laughter, where all may live the dawn. That means living to see another day, not just in terror or just because you're too stubborn to die, but because the dawn itself brings hope. This is poetic, visionary thinking. So let's say a little bit more about this vision. I'm nearly finished this short talk. So the vision is, it speaks of new words, new worlds, and histories. We need to do history differently. It can't just be a set of dates or the history of France or Germany or the world wars or the last 2,000 years, or even of the world in the old-fashioned way of doing it, where we start off with the emergences of language and social forms and we come down to today, thinking that the word progress, for instance, that we are involved in progress and that evolution is about progress. Evolution is actually about learning. Okay, if something fails to learn effectively, it dies. Okay, if it can't adjust quickly enough, it dies. And of course, that may well happen to our own species. This course is exploring the emerging thinking we need to make better choices and write better histories, okay? It's thinking that helps us make better choices and write better histories, I reiterate. To be a global citizen is to be engaged in this work, but it's not to be global in the globalizing way where we go around and appropriate and consume materials and ideas and culture from around the planet. No, it's about being global in our consciousness. But it's also about being global by thinking local, small actions that make a difference. A little question for you, if you want to go and do a bit of research, can you identify this flag? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but hopefully I will remember to ask you guys whom I meet in my tutorials, and Gil and Caitlin may ask you as well. Did you identify that flag? Okay, it's a beauty and it's to do with a movement that I find really inspirational. I say no more. Let's have a quick look at one small local action. It's not that small, actually. It took 100 days to do all this. Walking with the more than human world. Conceptual artist Bruno Duitens, who's a Dutch artist, organised a beautiful unfolding, you'd have to say, of green thinking, where people walked with 1,000 trees, more than 1,000 trees, as it says on that little slide there, around a Dutch town, a Dutch city called Leeuwarden. Okay, they did this, I think it was last year, and the idea was that the forest walking would bring people together to remind everyone that we are not, underline that word, not separate from nature, that we are a species that works with, co-evolves with other species. It's a beautiful thought experiment. There are 2 links under this talk. One to this little video that I took these 2 images from. It's about 3 minutes long on YouTube, but also to an interview that was conducted with Bruno Doidens, and it's really quite inspirational in itself. I think visual art, doing things with our bodies, doing things together with our bodies, doing things together with our bodies and other bodies that are not human bodies, are all important in terms of developing the words and the world and the truths that we need to turn to, rely on, foster, develop, cherish in the world of the global citizenship that I think we need to cultivate, and I am sharing my thinking with you. Hopefully I will convince you, okay? So one last slide, and I want to reflect on the way words work, because that's what that slide earlier was talking about. The unique in the universal. The unique in the universal. The me, the you, in a world that is situated in a solar system, that sits within a galaxy, that sits within the cosmos or the universe as such. So think about that for a minute. Think about how these words are constructed. They both rely on the word subword or it's a morpheme, a meaningful chunk of sound, university, unique, universal. It's all about a total, a big picture. It's unifying, okay? What we find is that any species evolves in dialogue with the environment. That means we co-evolve. The human species did not evolve on its own. It evolved in direct dialogue with the physical environment, but also the cultural and social environments that they developed over hundreds and thousands of years or multiple generations, okay? So think of that word again, university, okay? The concept or the aspiration of the university is to share knowledge that unifies the human species. It's a humanist aspiration that says humanity deserves to know the world they sit within. But it is also a very Western form of thinking. There are other ways of being uni or universal that are actually more aligned with the quote that I've read you from the Declaration, that are about plural within the uni. So let's think about this. Yet, okay, so diversity is key, yet there are patterns. We're going to look at the energy, complexity, and collective learning over this 12-week course. The uni is there, but also the plural. In that Dutch city, quite a few thousand people, over 100 days, I didn't mention that, it took 100 days to complete that art project, over 100 days performed acts of co-creation with trees, moving them around the city. It's a beautiful idea. World history attempts the uni, but discovers in doing so a pluriverse. So I'm changing the word there from universal world history. No, because that has, if we don't think about it, it can suck us into thinking that all human beings are the same in all ways, and that the sameness of modernity that is plastering itself across the planet at great cost is the best solution to our human problems and our human context, okay? So the pluriverse, and that's not my word, it's a word that I have been aware of probably for 20 odd years. People were writing about not the university, but the pluriversity, for instance, 20 to 30 years ago. If you go and Google the word, you'll find it all over the place. Big breath. Okay, so if that's the case, then you're going, okay, are you ready for this course? Is it interesting? Do you trust Gil and Caitlin and I to take you on a wonderful whirlwind tour through some of the thinking that we all, I think, desperately need, because we need to be optimistic, but we also need, as I said at the beginning, to be cautious. I hope this little talk is tantalizing and that it has you rushing off to read week 1 reading from David Christian. Listen to the video of his in which in 18 minutes he describes what his process of big history is. We're not doing big history in the way he would at all. But we are looking at history and the historical forms that constitute the world we live in today, and sniffing around, you might say. I don't like answers as such, but I do like good questions, and I like the provocations that a word like pluriverse provides me with. It's all in the thinking. To learn to think clearly, to deploy terms like energy, complexity, and collective learning in ways that enable you to understand the world a little better. That's where we're heading in this course, and I'm looking forward to traveling with you. Okay, anybody with any questions, of course, at any time, you're welcome to contact me on my email. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you all next week in week 1.